here at Bottom Line. I'm here today with Trevor Beckman from Story Communications. It's great to have you here, Trevor.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you, Lisa.
Works. Well, why don't we start off by you telling us a little bit more about what you do?
Well, I am Story Communications, and we focus in on sort of the public relations, or what I like to say, all the relations aspects of communications. So it might be media, it might be government, it might be community, all of those sort of aspects that can really make your communications strategies and plans really go that extra mile.
Awesome. And I know we've done quite a bit of work together in the past, and obviously successful work together. And I'd love to dig into what do you see is the relationship between marketing and PR? And we can even talk a little bit about some of the past campaigns we've worked on together too.
Sure. I really think marketing and PR are sort of just different levers that you need to pull to reach your overall communication strategy and your business objectives. They should be fully integrated in my view. There might be ones that are taking center stage more than others. And PR is kind of an ongoing sort of initiative. So I think it's more of a marathon than a sprint. Like you're constantly sort of reaching out in, varying aspects of public relations, whether it be some key reporters or influencers or podcasters, or maybe you're needing to keep communicating with government or the communities in which you do business. So it's sort of an ongoing long-term strategy that can really lay some great groundwork to really help your marketing initiatives really seem based in reality and authenticity. And I think it just needs to go hand in hand with your marketing initiatives.
I love it. And I know we, as I mentioned, have collaborated on lots of clients together. And yes, you always bring in that communications aspect, the government relations, media relations, public relations, all that fun stuff that, we don't play in that space. And I think what's been really cool is to see how the clients have benefited from putting those two pieces together. And we've, I think had some good campaigns. It's been a good run.
Yes. Yeah, it really has. And they just work so well. They should be complementary and really have the same measures and objectives. We work on one client who's focused in on road safety. And so there's sort of some marketing strategy we can do around behavioral changes, around helping people drive safer. While simultaneously we can work with the very, government departments that can help influence different infrastructure changes that perhaps we'd like to advocate for. That is a long-term game. You're not going to get government to necessarily fix a bridge overnight, but you can certainly lay the groundwork to help hopefully that piece of infrastructure change happen. And you can also, changing behavior is a long-term game. So you might have a quick little campaign. We just did one around safe texts. And meanwhile, we can be out there in the community advocating for change, at various community events, and sort of taking that long-term approach to changing behavior.
Absolutely. That's been a fun one to work together on.
Yeah. Sure. Absolutely. Lisa, the one campaign I wanted to bring up, outside of sort of the Safer Roads Alliance, where we're kind of doing that dual strategy of sort of public relations and marketing, and I'm not sure if you feel that we kind of hit the mark there. But the other one is sort of, although this isn't a client we're working on, obviously, dang, it would be fun, is Dove. I think Dove's Real Beauty campaign is one that, to me, is best practices of integrating both marketing with public relations. So they're advocates for real beauty, and they do all of this stuff behind the scenes to advocate for that. So they're kind of almost customer advocates versus sort of, hey, our new hand cream is fabulous.
So Trevor, I know that you are always looking at campaigns that are marrying marketing and PR together, and how the success of that translates into business results. And there was one that we were talking about recently about Dove. And I'd love to hear, what's your take on that?
Oh, to me, it is the perfect synergy of great marketing with great public relations. They've sort of gone off on this. They've been going in this direction for, I think, over 20 years now. And it's sort of the Dove's Real Beauty campaign. And so it's integrated into all aspects of their communications, marketing, and public relations. So, they have an iStock, essentially like an iStock library, called that, but of over 15,000 images of women and girls that are real. They're unaltered. They're just real photos. So they are not sort of what so many of us see every day on social media, these sort of airbrushed, unrealistic images of beauty and of women in particular. And so that really is practicing what they preach. Those are the kind of images they use throughout their campaign. And then they also do a lot of sort of grassroots initiatives on sort of their community relations, so their donor relations file or sponsorships, where that reflects their brand and sort of reinforces this whole sort of real beauty. And what I really love is they sort of are advocates for their customers versus just sort of marketing their products. And I think it just puts them in a wonderful space that they really have owned in a very crowded space of body care products, cosmetics generally. I've just been really impressed in watching them.
I love that. And I think, it ties back to the behavior change we were talking about at the beginning, where when you can evoke that emotion and people can actually see themselves in the campaign instead of it just being, hey, buy our body wash, it's better. Of course it outperforms. And I think that so many brands are, unfortunately, they're kind of missing that opportunity where they're focusing in the, hey, buy our stuff, we're better because, instead of, leaning into how those consumers are going to see themselves in that brand.
Absolutely. And that social connection, an emotional connection to your point, like that is such a wonderful space to be in. And the success of the Dove products kind of speak to itself. Like it kind of happened naturally without necessarily you breaking your arm to sort of pat yourself on your back saying, we have the best products. You can say, we're advocating for our clients. They're gorgeous just the way they are. Or we're going to help them with, maybe some dry skin.
Totally. I'm with you. I love that campaign as well.
Yeah, it's just really well done and it's really thoughtful and it's throughout their entire brand story. So it's not just marketing or their social media, although they certainly have a strong social media connection with all of these things, but it's how they relate to their varying communities, to the social, their donations or their sponsorship programs. It's they practice what they preach and that they have an available 15,000 images that people can use for their own campaigns. So they're sort of reaching out more broadly with this campaign. I'm just really impressed.
Absolutely. No, I agree. How about if we're looking at, marketing and PR and we're evaluating, are there ever times when they should operate independently instead of working together?
To be honest, no. And it doesn't have to be, I think they need to be constantly aligned. You might not be necessarily activating all at 100% all the time, but I think by kind of always being out there with continuing those relationships with the media. So, for instance, I have a client who's a pastry chef here in fabulous Calgary, and a reporter, call it food reporter. But she reached out because vanilla was getting incredibly expensive. And so because we worked with her, because we had an ongoing relationship with her, she reached out to my client directly to talk about Vanilla's pastry chef. He would have something to add to this conversation. It wasn't me actively pitching. It's because she was aware of who he was and had profiled before, and we developed a relationship that this was an easy phone call for her to make. So I think those sort of opportunities come up if you're kind of constantly nurturing, whether it's media relations or perhaps it might be government relations or what have you, that you're constantly sort of nurturing those and sort of have a strategy and you know what that is and it's aligned with your marketing strategy. And I think also it's good, should you ever get into a crisis situation, you are much better able to sort of perhaps help to manage those sort of crisis situations as well.
Totally. Well, and you've actually highlighted something that I think is valuable to touch on, which is the difference, like even within the PR field, I think a lot of people sometimes get confused that crisis communications is PR. And my understanding is, although it's a facet of it, it's not all of it. Can you speak to the differences and maybe just compare and contrast the different parts of that industry or your industry?
Well, I think crisis communications obviously it comes up immediately. You need to have a strategy to manage it right now or very, very quickly. Responsiveness is important, but while responsiveness is important, it's also important that you sort of have your facts lined up, and you know all the facts, because in a crisis you certainly don't want to compound things by not coming out with factual and correct and accurate information. So if you've got you sort of know the client, you worked with them, you understand them, and you also know what might, for instance, in this case, media might be interested in covering this particular crisis, whatever that may be. You've already developed some degree of a relationship, so that can really help you go a long way to sort of help get your client through this crisis. So it is a part of, but it's very sort of separate. Ideally, you sort of have a crisis plan already developed when you're not in a crisis, so that when it hits, you know how, if nothing else, how the process is going to work. So, who's going to approve things, how you're going to get through timely. You have your social media people there. Everybody is sort of ready to determine what your response is and to respond. So it's having a process, an emergency response plan or crisis plan is really important, and really help sort of mitigate the risks that might be associated with that crisis.
Absolutely. I appreciate you explaining, because I know, given that's not my field of expertise, you and I early days had many discussions about, the differences in skill sets that are required for crisis comms versus government relations, so on and so forth. It's not always one person's forte to do all of it. We're just lucky to work with you that you do have a lot of those feathers in your cap.
Well, and I also know some other, it's always good to bring in a team. I'm big on strategy, and certainly crisis isn't you need all the brains and people you can get to that table who can help you think this through and make sure that you consider it from all the angles, and that having input is wonderful, and then a process on how to react quickly, so that everybody knows what your lane is, especially when you're in a time of crisis when people might be a little bit more anxious and concerned, and got an established process that everybody knows. You just work it.
Fabulous. Well, I appreciate you sharing a little bit more about the PR world and about Story, and I really enjoy the work that we do together.
I do too. It is really good fun, and I think I think you do better work for your clients when you have people come together who have different skill sets and different ways to look at the same problem, or to try and capture an opportunity. Your clients get better work for it.
Great. No, totally. Yeah. I think the partnership model is definitely the way of the future.
Agreed. Plus, it's more fun.
That's right. Well, thanks for joining me today, Trevor. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for having me.